It's time to wrap up the game up with LiquidRet in daily number 561, where we learn to be a better gamer. In part number 1, we did a kind of extensive look at the opening and all the sort of timings and various things that we would need to worry about, and we even looked at a video of micro. In part 2, it was a lot about the movement of this muta ling, bane ling, and how it works surprisingly well against this marine mine medivac marauder play. So LiquidRet kind of blundered, lost 2 bases, pulled back, and did a reasonable attack. And then, again, another kind of considerable blunder in my eyes, but is going to be able to pull it back. Did an attack here, but sacked a sort of critical 5th base up here, lost some more drones. In fact, there's been some good drone killing on both sides this game, but this is icky, very icky. So good old Ling Ultralisk. Hilariously enough, the last thing that Ret transitions to is that Ret transitions into Infestors. He goes Ling Muta, then throws in the Ultra, and as the last bit throws in the Infesta, which makes sense. The Mutalisks behave as somewhat of a surrogate Infestor, being able to pick off medivacs, being able to chase down retreating armies. And now I want you to just know, Ultras are ideal against mines. They just eat up a ton of shots. I mean, not as ideal as like a single Zergling, but they eat up a ton of shots. They're so huge, there's not as much of a splash radius as there is with Lings and or Mutalisks, especially not with Mutalisks. This attack has a clear purpose, trying to kill off this southern base. And of course, we're starting to see why the Mutalisks are very useful in this context. Very tough to defend all this stuff. A Corruptor or 2 or just leaving some Mutalisks back can't hurt, but again, protecting the bases. Zerglings can move up here. The Ultras really need to be responsible and stay at home, because we just can't afford to lose expansions at this point in time. Fungal growths, not as amazing as they were in Wings of Liberty, but still amazing. Widow Mines go off, killing off the Infestors, but I want you just to know how cool these attacks are. Here's a weird spot. Ret is almost saying, yeah, you know what, screw it. I only have one almost dead base. My real base is gone. This attack serves 2 purposes, base-wise. Kill off his base, defend my base. And we can tell because the red army is right in the way of this base. So nice. Ultralisks are so freaking good against bio. I can't believe it. Alright, cool, so we accomplished a really solid goal, and now Ret's pulling back. Yeah, Ret tends to get real clutch in spots like these. And clutchness we see. Now, I don't even know how to describe this. This is not like general tactics. This is just like, oh, I guess my mines are behind enemy lines. Go for it, dudes. And then they did. SuperNova is doing his absolute darndest to apply pressure, and in this circumstance, I think it's a pretty tough choice for Ret. Ret essentially has to hold this off and focus on securing this base, or could begin trying to secure this base and put pressure on this expansion. I would generally prefer the expand here to apply pressure there. Given that this was already up, that's fine to continue defending it, but with this location being so vulnerable, we can't really expand here. So this is I think a fine choice from Ret. And look, sending drones to the top side. Even though we don't have a hatch here, it still shares a nice relationship to this set of units. We could have all our drones mined from this expansion, but we're actually having most of them mined from the north. Really nice attack, really easy kill off. At this point, I would pull back 100%. My fundamental issue all game long was that he kept having more bases, but now he's down to 3. I'm not going to let him have a 4th. And this, I think, is yet another... This is dangerous. I actually don't like this. This is where I was just like, ah! Because if we attack, we are essentially risking... Here's the probably best way to put it. We are risking this whole army. We're betting this whole army, which is about, 7K worth of stuff. To deny our opponent 500, 1,000, like to deny our opponent 1,500 more minerals. Spending 7,000 to get a gain of about 1,500. And you might say, oh, well, he's killing off a lot of workers. Well, yeah, we're losing a lot of workers, and we're losing a lot of critical stuff. I would much rather spend this 7,000 worth of army securing for myself whatever 1,500 times 8 is. I don't know if anyone knows how to multiply numbers, but I'm certain that that's higher than 1,500 times 1. I'm sure that this feels nice, but this is really risky. Are you starting to see how good ultras are against buyout? You know what? We've been rewinding for Widow Mines. Look at the bio. Yeah, alright. Oh, yes. Pretty good game, right? So this is risky. Very risky. Could have pulled back and gotten a more secured little expander thing. So, I mean, I honestly like breaking up this tab and noting how much we're investing to kill off this base versus how much we're investing to defend this base, because it's really easy to boil things down to objective numbers. We almost certainly would have taken some damage in the main and the natural, but we would have not lost it. And SuperNova would have been hard-pressed to find another answer. So now this is where things get awesome. So SuperNova begins his lift and land. I think this is very smart from Rhett. He has enough units back home to sort of hold the front, sack this. This doesn't need to be defended. This doesn't need to be defended. The only thing that really needs to be defended are these drones and this future base. This is completely frivolous. No need to even get off creep and to track these down. Everything's being taken out in the main base. So suddenly the split is starting to look a little cleaner, a little better. Again, it's not that this is good, the spot that, I don't want to say that. Rhett made a potentially fatal choice to move in, and given that potentially fatal choice and how things panned out, I now like the Ultralisk split. That is not to say that he did a correct split, leaving this many at home and sending that many to attack. In my eyes, the correct play is to pull back everything when both the left and bottom bases were down. Once this base was killed and this base was killed, all those ultras should have pulled back and gotten almost no damage to the main base. Because what we really did is we killed off his production. But his production doesn't matter if he has no base to get money from to spend on the producing. So SuperNova accidentally loses a dude. Damn. So just note this sort of out of positionness. I'm going to go to the army tab. Here's our lings. One at the watchtower, beautiful. Another one at this watchtower, beautiful. It's the only 2 lings in existence. And in fact, these other ultralisks, or these other overlords are here. The ultralisks should be positioned right around here. Why? Because we have more vision on the right side than we do on the left. So we want our units a little closer to where we don't have vision. We want to skew it to that side. And then here comes some nice decision making. Rhett has no infrastructure. Yet he has a baneling nest. He's going to continue to try to locate all these buildings to take them out. SuperNova. Doing all these hidden, expandy things. Now, 3 rules that I always like to say when you're ahead. Number 1 is begin watching your mini-map. Number 2 is make sure that you are not falling behind on any of your key upgrades. And number 3 is scout for expansions. Those are the 3 rules I always use when I'm ahead. And look at Rhett with this backup defense force scouting for expansions like crazy, while continuing to try to do cleanup. It's so cool to see marauders run from ultralisks. Isn't that just heartwarming? Look at those poor marauders, thinking how on earth would we ever be able to beat those scary ultralisks? Don't we counter them? Don't we counter ultralisks? No, look at this ultralist just boss moding it and trying to micro around. Run! Get back in the medivac. Okay, well that hurts souls. Either way, spawning pool. This is a little bit of a questionable location. I honestly feel like building the pool right here is weirdly better just because we have only one real spot we need to defend. We can let these all die. But now we have this orphaned, we have this useless, these two useless buildings, this effectively useless building. It's going to help us with some production, but really the pool is like critical, and this expansion is critical. So all that base scouting, having Ultralisks, man, that SuperNova's pretty good, right? Pretty good. So, amazingly, this Baneling Nest comes into final use. SuperNova does a really slick little move. Sends up an orbital command, and if you didn't think you'd ever use supply drop, think again. Bam! And now he's on supply block, and can produce SCVs 2 at a time. Still scouting for expansions. And of course, if he tries to wall off, do what you would do on the North American ladder and build a bunch of Banelings and all in blessing. Really nice game. Really cool game. Was especially happy about das Openings. Das Openingos. Das Opening. I think SuperNova probably could have done a little bit of pain bringing, given those blunders that Rhett made. But I think Rhett did a magnificent job sort of pulling back. Let's see. Let's see. Day 9. I'm having some trouble dealing with mines when my eyes are not on top of my army. What steps can be taken to minimize the silly damage mines can do? Thanks so much. Feel free to just get creative with it because there's no absolute right answer. Some of the things that come to mind right away is that whenever he has his army moving up, so here's his army and here's your army. So he's doing this, and you're kind of pulling back like this. Send 6 lings behind, and then send those lings in from behind first, and the rest of your army down. Because he's likely going to retreat back over his mines, so the lings from behind will set him off. You can have, like, control 1B mutas, 2B lings, 3B banelings, and then control group 4 is 12 zerglings, and you just send those first. Or, a lot of times I'll have control group 0 be the suicide unit or the drop unit or the spellcaster or whatever. So that way I'm like, 0, go! 1A, 2A, 3A. So then you have like these 12 lings that I don't need to think that much anymore because I know these 12 lings should be absorbing most of the mine damage. Yeah, it's nothing too amazing. I haven't really seen a lot of people use speed overlords, but that certainly has a lot of potential, just sort of cupping them around the army and folding out. If he tries to send small numbers of units to go after an overlord, he either sends too few and your mutas kill it, or he sends too many and the mutas can whip around and pick off the mines. I just would say you're probably gonna take a considerable amount of damage, but then again, he's gonna spend a considerable amount on the mines. Solomiro says, Day 9, how would Swarm Host deal with this hellbat and then marine marauder mine? I think you'd lose straight up to this hellbat play that we saw at the start. Just straight up. I mean, I don't really think... I mean, if I saw my opponent going Swarm Host, I'd be like, oh, well, there's the Locust. Alright, go into the base. This whole opening from Rhett works because we know mutas are about to pop out, so we can always fall back on them mutas to stay alive. But how would it deal with it in the mid-game? The Marine Marauder Mines would be the second half of Solomiro's question. I got completely distracted. I can't remember what the question was. Oh yeah, mid-game. I think that Marine Marauder Mine medivac would probably just decimate a player who was going for a lot of Locust. Why? Because think about the way that the movement goes. You retreat Marine Marauder Medivac so that the mines are underneath them. So that way when the Zerg gives chase, the mine gives detonation and death. So if you're imagining a bunch of locusts coming, you just pull back the mines, and then you stim and rush in and just kill off the rest, and then rush up to the swarm host and kill them. So I would say, don't do that. Don't go for the swarm host if you see him there. Day 9, what can Terran do as a response to Ultra's drops? A certain unit? Units are not actually, how do I want to say it? Units are like the, how do I want to say that? You know how when Steve Jobs would always have a new Apple product, he'd always take it out of his pocket and it would look stylish and it would look really good and stuff. And he was like amazing at talking about the features and all the hype around it. But Steve Jobs didn't make like the iPhone, right? It was like a whole bunch of teams, and the culmination of their efforts led up to this presentation at the end with Steve Jobs being there. The Ultralisk it's not just like the Ultralisk is the thing that's going wrong. It's the culmination of all this play up through, and then it's coming out at the end. And the Ultralisk is just one of the many options Zerg could have had to throw at Terran. And the reason I say this is that the answer is not a unit. It's not like, you need to build more Marauders. You really got to start incorporating more tanks and Thors when you see the Ultralisks. It's not like that. In the mid-game, you have two mid-games. I should say there's 3 reasonable mid-games for Zerg right now. Roach Hydra, and then, so the Terran would have to be quite defensive, and when Ultras came out, they'd be relatively low on upgrades and would not really have considerable link support. And in that circumstance, you'd probably be a little tank Marauder Marine heavy, and you would just be dealing with a low number of expansions, high efficiency, and you'd be good if Ultras came out there. What if he goes for Ling Mutalisk, like this? Well, we've seen that this game was close enough. I'll just say rewatch this game, and you can see how Marine Marauder, Medivac Mine, dealt quite well, killing off bases and then defending. The real issue for SuperNova is that his defense for his 4th and 5th bases was low. So he was unable to have the overwhelming numbers to defeat the Ultralisks. And similarly, if it's Ling and Fester, you can put a lot of pressure on Zergs who go Ling and Fester nowadays because of the projectile fungal growth, which means that you will have a base count lead. So in 2 of those options, the Mutalisk and the Mutalisk case and the Mutalisk case and the Infestor Ling case. Especially if you go for this sort of style, you're trying to overwhelm his hive tech with huge numbers. And similarly, if you were trying to go for a Marine tank against Mutalisks, or you were up against Roach Hydra, you'd be trying to stay hold in and just do a huge push right as those Ultras are getting up so they never really get off the ground. But once things get into huge numbers, it's a lot of just the intuitive units, Marine Marauder, Medivac, nothing fancy here, and then a lot more dropping. We saw the drops be quite strong. So there's my very long-winded answer with a lot of content in there. That was actually that's like a dense as hell answer. Whew, that answer had a lot, man. Poor live people can't rewind. What game am I going to be playing in my day off? Magic the Gathering, Gate Crash, drafting on Friday. Let's take one more. Manbon says something, he says something that's great. He says, upon seeing Noodles, should the Terran player have gone for Thors or carry on with MMM plus Mines despite seeing Banelings appear? I actually don't have the greatest answer for what is ideal, because on one hand, anytime a Terran goes heavily defensive against Mutaling Baneling and then tries to strike later, that's kind of standard Wings of Liberty with, you know, Tank Marine instead of it being Mine Marine. we're also seeing that SuperNova can really get a Mutalisking player heavily out of position and do well with the mines. So, I think I'll come to this point right here. I think this might be my best answer to the upon seeing Mutalist. So we've seen Mutalist. I actually think that this is fine. The way that SuperNova's playing it out, this is exactly the way a tank push would work. I honestly think that this is probably a smarter location to plant the expand than here. This actually is basically saying, kill me, kill me, kill me. This is defendable because we have like lines of units heading there constantly. So I think that that is a huge issue for SuperNova to deal with. Then upon all this going on, yep, again, staying hold back. This is super smart. This should have been a planetary a lot earlier. This we're doing mass damage. All the pings being rung. So we see, yeah, we see a lot of Mutalists there. You know, I just don't see, for one, I don't see why there's no, I don't really see why there's no turrets here or a bunker. I mean, that could have saved a huge amount of headaches. There's all sorts of bunkering right here, but none up there. I think that's one thing. Perhaps one could argue that as you're getting your fourth, you can transition into Raven, and that just obliterates Mutalists so well and contributes to this theme of mobility. But, I mean, no bunker, no depot walls, late planetary, no turrets. I'd say that that's more to the point. Because it really did look like SuperNova would be pretty close to holding that off. So that's my show. It's now time for the After Hours Gaming... Oops. Where is it? After Hours Gaming League. So I'll be doing that. I need to turn off the stream for about 2 minutes while I get all the stuff, all the new overlays put in, and all the stuff downloaded. So I'm going to close out this show. Play some music, turn it off, and then turn the stream right back on once I get everything loaded up. So, guys, thanks so much for watching. Had a thrilling time in that daily, and I hope you did too. Thanks again. You guys are great.